Hi everyone and welcome to Moneycurious. So today I'm going to be talking about my 3 essential rules for investing. Now these are only my rules in my personal opinion, but if you do your research on this, you'll find that these 3 key rules are kind of mentioned across the board. So let's get into it. So the first one is about controlling your emotions. This is really like the most key thing when looking to be an investor. So you might think the stock market is quite complicated and you need to be super intellectual to know what to do and when to buy stocks, but there isn't really that much evidence that correlates success in the stock market with IQ. People who are successful in investing are able to control their emotions. For example, first of all, you need to be decisive and decide whether to buy or sell a particular stock. And then after you've implemented that decision, you can't be questioning, was that the right decision? Maybe I should pull out. You need to just think, what's done is done. That was my decision. And then you have to think long term. You can't be thinking, I'm going to get in now and get out when things are looking bad. Then perhaps you might decide to check back your portfolio, say in a month's time or whenever you decide to check it, and you might see that the stock that you've invested in has tanked and it's gone down by 30%. And then the worst thing you could do in this situation is panic and think, I better get out right now because I don't want to lose any more money. Because the truth is, you've not lost any money at all. You've only lost money when you decide to sell at a 30% loss. If you leave your money where it is and think, okay, I made this decision for a reason. I thought that this stock was a good investment. I did my research into it, and you stick with your decision, the likelihood is that over the long term, whether that is the end of the year or it's 5 years' time or it's like when you go to retire, the likelihood is that investment will have increased in price. So you cannot be someone that panics, is basically the conclusion. You need to be the type of person that makes an informed decision. You do your research on the company. You determine what your risk appetite is. You make a decision based off of that research. You have a clear plan. So it might even be advisable that before you even decide to buy something, you write down, I will check my portfolio once a month and no more than that. And you might decide to write down criteria for which you might decide to sell that stock. So, for example, if you see that they've, made an acquisition and they're struggling financially, and it's not looking good for that company, you might say, you know what, all things considered, it's best that I sell this and I invest my money somewhere else. So you need to kind of try and decide most of that ahead of time if you can, and try and stick to it. And that's easier said than done. But this is one of the key things about investing, is controlling your emotions. So I just put in a quote here from Michael Batnick, director of the Ritz-Holt Wealth Management. And he said, emotions are a far more important driver of success than IQ. What made Warren Buffett such a great investor was not just superior intellect, but emotional fortitude to stay true to his strategy during deep drawdowns. And this figure is a great example of the roller coaster of emotions that people can go through when they're investing. So let's start on the left-hand side, and you might be thinking to yourself, I see a trend. I should probably watch the market and see what happens next. And then you see it going up and you sort of think to yourself, if I wait any longer, I might not be able to profit from this trend. So you get into the market and you think, thank God I bought, because it's going up a little bit more now. And then the market might start to fall a little bit, and you might start to think, okay, this is fine. I'll use this correction to increase my position, and I'll buy again at a lower price, and then I'll be even in a better situation than I was before. And then the market continues to go down and down and down, and you might think, okay, enough is enough. I should probably sell and just cut my losses. So then you sell everything, and then you see the market go up again, but you think, I'm not worried. I think it will probably fall again. And then it does fall again, and you've sort of reassured yourself, yes, it has fallen, and then you start to see it go back up again, and you might be thinking, oh no, I knew all along it would recover, why did I sell at that point? So this is just a great illustration that if you don't start with a plan and know your reasons for investing in the first place, and also know your reasons for selling possibly in the future, you can go through this sort of roller coaster of emotions when you see your stocks go up and down. So this is something that you want to avoid. So this is why number 1 is control your emotions. So number 2, know your risk tolerance. So this is something that's actually going to help you a lot with rule number 1. And this is knowing your risk appetite or tolerance. So your risk tolerance is defined as the degree of variability in investment returns that an investor is willing to withstand in their financial planning. So in other words, how much money would you be willing to lose if the worst case scenario happens with your portfolio? So you'll often see it's described that the riskier your portfolio is, the higher the returns could be. And conversely, if you choose a less risky portfolio, then the returns are likely to be smaller, but perhaps you can be a little bit more sure that you will receive those returns, and your portfolio might be less likely to sort of spike up and down. And if that's something that panics you, then you might be wanting to look at a low risk portfolio instead. But the honest truth is that neither of these risk profiles are foolproof. You can never guarantee anything. When you look to invest, you might be looking for a do-it-yourself portfolio where you, as the individual investors, pick your stocks. Or for a lot of beginners, the best place to start is a managed portfolio. So when a portfolio manager will start to assess an individual, they'll want to know their risk tolerance or risk appetite, and they might base this on a person's age, for example. So if you're very young, they might think, okay, you'll be investing for the long term, which could be 10, 25 years, or until they decide to retire, and this gives time for the swings in the market to balance out, and it gives a higher likelihood that the portfolio will grow over time. They'll also be looking at your financial stability and security. So how much money do you have to spare? How much money are you willing to risk? And also your overall investment goals. Typically, they might say that if your time horizon is relatively short, your risk tolerance should shift to be more conservative. But for longer term investments, there's more room for aggressive investing because you can kind of balance out the bigger swings that happen in the market. So if you have a low risk tolerance, as I mentioned, you might want to stay away from the do-it-yourself type of investing where you as an individual are picking stocks, and move towards a more sort of managed portfolio. And there are different variations of this. For example, a particular one that I've come across called an eVesta, they give you this survey where you pick your level of risk appetite. So this could be medium, low or high, and then they will decide where to put your money based on that risk appetite that you've inputted into their website. I've actually put a link in the description to a risk calculator. This isn't one with eVesta, but it's with Standard Life. So I'll give you an idea of the questions that you might want to ask yourself, or that you might be asked by a portfolio manager before you go and invest any of your capital. And number 3, make regular investments. So it's kind of widely accepted in the investing world that, especially for beginner investors or inexperienced investors, the best strategy to get good returns in the market is time in the market, not timing the market. And I'll repeat that again, it's time in the market, not timing the market. And what I mean by that is it's been proven in quite a few studies that it's not optimal to time the market, i.e. let me try and time the market so I can get in at the lowest price possible and then sell at the highest price possible. And one reason for this is it's pretty much impossible, even for the most experienced investors, to determine exactly when the market has reached its lowest low and when it will go up again. So A good way around this is making regular investments, and there's a strategy called dollar cost averaging, which is where you invest the same amount regularly over a long period of time. For example, £100 every month over 20 years in Disney stocks, for example. And this means sometimes you'll buy at a low price, sometimes you'll buy at a medium price, and sometimes you'll buy at a high price. But on the average, over time, you will buy at a lower price than if you tried to time the market. So here we have an example to try and illustrate this. So say you have £300 to invest in total. So you're looking to put £300 into the stock market in a particular stock. If we go with the dollar cost averaging approach, say you decide that your regular payments are going to be £100 per month that you'll invest in that stock. So in January, you find the share price to be £50 per share, so you're able to buy 2 shares. On the same day in February, find that the share price has gone up, unfortunately, to £80, so that means you can only buy 1.25 shares. And then when it gets to March, you see that the share price has drastically gone down. So now they're only £25 per share, so you can buy 4 shares in total. So over the course of these 3 months, having spent your £300, which you wanted to invest in the first place, you've managed to buy 7.25 shares in total. So let's compare this to if we decided to time the market. So here there are 3 scenarios, because remember, we're never going to know what a great price is for this particular share. We might think in January, for example, £50 sounds like a great cheap price. Let me put my whole £300 into the market right there and then. And if you'd done that, you would have come out with 6 shares. So that's less than the 7.25 share you would have come out with if you'd dollar cost averaged. So secondly, you might have thought in February, okay, £80 seems like a great price, let me put all my money in at once. And this would have been very detrimental because you would have only come out with 3.75 shares. But you might have been lucky, and in March you might have invested all your money when the share price was only £25 per share, and you might come out with 12 shares, which is obviously better than the result from the dollar cost averaging. But really the logic here is that over time it will balance out, that if you put in a regular amount every month, every quarter, whatever you decide, but if you're regular and consistent with the payments that you make into that particular portfolio or share, ETF, whatever it is, then over time those will average out and you will accumulate more shares than you would have if you tried to time the market. And here's an example. So in this graph, what we're looking at is the hypothetical growth of $10,000 invested in the S&P 500 over a period of about 32 years there. It's showing on the left-hand side, if you invested on all days a proportion of that amount, then you'd come out with the greatest return. Because this is an example of dollar cost averaging. You're regularly investing the same amount over that period of time. But if you missed out on the 5 best days to invest during that period of time, you would have reduced your portfolio by a sizable amount. It's over $100,000 there that you've missed out on by missing those 5 best days of investing. And it follows, and the money gets less and less, all the way down to the end where you're missing 50 of the best days during a 32-year period, bear in mind. You've missed only the 50 best days to invest, and your money is only $29,000 rather than the $332,000 it could be if you invested on all days. So that's just an example of how dollar cost averaging works over a long period of time, because you might not miss the 5 best days or the 10 best days, but it's very hard for you to determine which are the best and which are the worst. Best strategy you can use is to just to stick and be regular and make regular payments into that portfolio. So I hope you found that useful. So these were my 3 essential rules for investing, and to recap, they were 1. Control your emotions, 2. Know your risk tolerance, 3. Make regular investments. If you'd like to know any more about any of these topics, then please drop a comment in the comment section below. Please subscribe to the channel if you like the content I'm producing, and I'll see you next time.